Okay, what if I told you that one of the most powerful storms in all of recorded history wasn't actually a surprise? What if a series of divine messages, a storm foretold, actually warned if it's coming? Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of Typhoon Yolanda and the one man who claimed to have seen it all coming.
So, let's set the scene. The date is November 8th, 2013. The place? The Philippines. This is a date and a location that is absolutely burned into the memory of a nation. This was the day that Typhoon Haiyan, which is known locally as Yolanda, made landfall. And for millions of people, life was never, ever going to be the same again.
Just try to wrap your head around this number, 315 kilometers per hour. That is the sheer raw power we're talking about with Typhoon Yolanda. I mean, this wasn't just a storm. It was one of the strongest tropical cyclones to ever hit land. The devastation it left behind was, well, it was almost unimaginable.
But here's where the story gets really interesting. What if this storm, this massive, catastrophic event, wasn't a total surprise? What if its path was actually predicted, not by weather satellites, but through divine prophecy? That's what we're going to explore, and it all revolves around one particular man. So, let's get into it. The man at the very heart of this story is named Narciso Olalo. Now, he's not your typical faith healer. To his followers, he's way more than that, something much more significant. He is considered the #1 instrument chosen by God to deliver divine messages to the world.
Now, that word, instrument, that's a really powerful term. So what does it actually mean in this context? Well, it refers to someone who is believed to be a direct channel for God's will. You know, a person who is tasked with healing, preaching, and delivering these crucial messages to guide all of humanity. It basically implies a direct line to the divine. And Olalo claims to have 3 very specific divine gifts that really set him apart. First up is the power to heal and preach, but with one very strict rule. No money can ever be exchanged. Second is something he calls the power of mind, which is this ability to see a person's entire life story, their sins, their past. And third, the gift that brings us here today, the power to see the future. So, how exactly did these prophecies play out? Well, this wasn't some single last-minute warning. The source material shows a whole timeline of messages that Olalo posted on social media, starting a full 3 months before Yolanda even hit. So let's take a look. The very first message shows up on August 22nd, 2013. It's a vision of walking with Jesus Christ in heavy rain and strong winds. And the interpretation was pretty clear. This was a sign that a really powerful typhoon was on its way. Now, at this point, it's pretty general, right? But the seed has definitely been planted. Now, fast forward to October 20th, less than 3 weeks before the storm. The messages start to take on this new, much more ominous tone. This one here speaks of a great tragedy. And then this chillingly specific detail. There would be a shortage of coffins. And you can just see the warnings escalating. It goes from a general prediction back in August to messages that get more and more specific. By early October, it's called the strongest typhoon that will ever happen. Then comes that haunting prediction about a coffin shortage. And on November 7th, the day before landfall, the message is just dire. There's no way to run. There's no place to hide. And that brings us to the final critical hours right before the storm. The warnings, which had been building up for months, they now reach this fever pitch of detail and urgency. So what was the final piece of this puzzle? Well, at 12:15 a.m. on November 8th, for the very first time, a specific location is named. The message warns the people of Leyte that they will be the hardest hit area. It predicts mass casualties and a total loss of power. Suddenly, the prophecy has a target. And then, just 15 minutes later, at 12:30 a.m., the final prophecy is delivered. The storm is described as the most ferocious, a force that will take many, many lives. It's this final, terrifying vision of what's about to come, a storm of just immense power and deadly force. And then, silence. Just 2.5 hours after that final, specific warning that named Leyte, Typhoon Yolanda made landfall. The prophecies were over, and the storm had begun. So, what was the whole point of these warnings?
I mean, according to the source material, they were way more than just a forecast of a physical storm. They were actually tied to a much bigger spiritual message. See, at the very heart of Narciso Olalo's broader message, tangled up with all these prophecies, is a three-part call to humanity. Number 1, to repent for all sins. Number 2, to renew one's Christian life. And number 3, to have an unwavering faith in God. So the tragedy, the storm, it was presented as a catalyst, a kind of wake-up call for a spiritual awakening. And that's where we have to leave it. We've just walked through a timeline of increasingly specific warnings that ended in a catastrophic, real-world event. We've seen the claims, we've seen the prophecies, and we know the aftermath. So the question that's left for you to think about is this: where do you draw the line between faith, foresight, and just pure coincidence? What do you believe?